How's it going, everybody? My name is Noah Holly, and welcome back to another episode of the Pride Report. It's episode 27, and we've got so much to talk about today because last night was one of the most action-packed nights of the season. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. Seven ranked teams were in action last night, the highest ranked being Villanova, who fell to Providence in a shocking upset. The Friars topped the third-ranked Wildcats 76-71 to pick up their second win over a top-5 team on the season. Kyron Cartwright had 17 points for Providence, who was coming off of a humiliating 17-point loss to DePaul on their home floor. In the loss to the Blue Demons, the Friars went 2 for 19 from three-point range while allowing DePaul to hit 8 of 18. But the exact opposite was the case last night as Providence hit 8 for 25 while Nova went 3 for 20. In this day and age of college basketball, you just cannot afford to have an abysmal performance from downtown. You also can't afford to turn the ball over 19 times as Villanova did last night. Now, don't get me wrong, this was a very concerning loss for Villanova, but you must remember that they are playing without their best perimeter defender in Phil Booth before jumping to conclusions. With Booth, there is not a doubt in my mind that this is the best team in the country. Without Booth, they're still really good, but ultimately more vulnerable in these types of games. In other Big East action, Xavier rode a career night from Trayvon Blewett to an 102-90 win over the sliding Seton Hall Pirates. Blewett scored 37 points and hit a whopping 8 three-pointers. Najee Marshall added 20, and the Musketeers took over first place in the Big East following Villanova's loss. Now, Xavier showed exactly what it is capable of offensively last night. When the Musketeers are knocking down three-point shots, 100 points is never out of the question. However, keep in mind that a bad defense will always catch up to you, and Xavier does not have anything close to a championship-level defense, which is what holds me back from declaring them a national championship favorite. Seton Hall, meanwhile, dropped its fourth in a row despite scoring 65 points in the second half, which happened to be more than they scored in the entirety of the first meeting between the teams. The Pirates have the pieces to be a top 10 team, but quite frankly, this is just not a good college basketball team right now. Mental lapses, poor defensive efforts, and sluggish starts, among other things, have kept Seton Hall from realizing its potential this season. And it's so frustrating because I know this team can be elite. I've called it all year long, but they just continue to get in their own way. 24th ranked Nevada topped Boise State in the Mountain West game of the year behind a hot shooting night from Kendall Stevens. Stevens had 21, Caleb Martin matched him with 21 of his own, and the Wolfpack all but ended Boise State's at-large hopes. Boise State fought valiantly, but an inability to convert when it mattered most ended up dooming the Broncos. Missed opportunities like these have defined Boise State's season, which is honestly so unfortunate considering the talent on this team. No Marvin Bagley, no problem. Apparently, Duke hammered Virginia Tech 74-52 last night without their superstar. Grayson Allen played like the Michigan State Grayson Allen, hitting 7 of 15 from deep en route to a 25 performance. Gary Trent added 19 as well. Did I not say that those two guys have to have a big game without Bagley? Well, they did. The Blue Devils pummeled a Hokie squad that looked overmatched from the get-go. The big question coming into this game was whether or not Virginia Tech could replicate their defensive performance in the win over Virginia on Saturday. It turned out that not only did the Hokies fail to do that, they also completely fell short on the offensive end as well, which I did not expect in the slightest. If you can recall yesterday's show, I talked about how I thought this game would develop into a shootout, but that just was not the case. Auburn beat Kentucky 76-66 to stay atop the SEC standings and drop the Wildcats to 6-7 in conference play. The Tigers turned on the Jets late to pull away and make up for a nightmarish shooting start. Now, I love watching this Tigers team play because they play hard and they play smart on both ends of the floor. There's also a certain toughness and grit to this team that is just so much fun to watch. I'm just such a big believer in what Bruce Pearl has done with this program. I'm giving the Coach of the Year to Ohio State's Chris Holtmann, but it should not go unnoticed how Pearl has completely changed the culture of Auburn basketball. Finally, Florida State toppled Clemson 81-79, rallying from an 18-point deficit to knock off the 11th-ranked Tigers in overtime. Trent Forrest stepped up in a big way, scoring 16 points, and Florida State rebounded from a tough loss to Notre Dame over the weekend to pull off the upset. Florida State has been two completely different teams at home and on the road this season, and last night was no exception. So what awaits us in the college hoops world tonight? Well, for starters, we've got a crucial game in the American as Cincinnati takes its unbeaten record in conference play into Houston at 7 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. If it weren't for Virginia, Cincinnati's defense would probably be the talk of college basketball right now. The Bearcats allow a tick under 56 points per game. Curiously, the only time Cincinnati has struggled on that end of the floor in conference play was against Houston, who scored 70 points in the Bearcats' win over the Cougars late last month. Houston has been unbeatable at home in AAC play, despite the fact that, like Cincinnati, they're playing their home games at a temporary site this season. Their dominance at home is one of the many reasons that Cincinnati should be wary of this matchup. The others being the fact that Houston has an extremely potent defense of their own, and they've got a lot of dangerous shooters on the roster. Definitely a lot of potential for an upset here, so it would be wise for Cincinnati to come into this game on high alert. Ohio State will travel to face Penn State at 8 p.m. on Big Ten Network. The Buckeyes' only Big Ten loss came at the hands of the Nittany Lions last month. OSU will definitely be on upset alert once again against a Penn State team that has won 5 of 6 and has one of the conference's best players in Tony Carr, who happened to be the difference maker in the first meeting between the teams. Purdue is going to go on the road to face Wisconsin. It has gotten downright ugly for the Badgers, who have lost 9 of 11. Besides Ethan Happ, this team is just completely devoid of offensive options. Purdue, on the other hand, is filled to the brim with offensive weapons. Look for the Boilermakers to return to their winning ways in this one, as I highly doubt that Wisconsin has what it takes to match Purdue for a full 40 minutes. The headliner is the long-anticipated rematch of Arizona and Arizona State at 9 on ESPN. It's safe to say that quite a lot has changed since the first meeting between these teams all the way back on December 30th. For example, Arizona State has crashed back to earth since then, managing just a 7-6 record in Pac-12 play. Likewise, it has been far from smooth sailing for Arizona, but the Wildcats nevertheless have established themselves as the clear favorite to win the league. These teams have very different play styles. Arizona State is known for its guard play, while Arizona's biggest strength is its inside game, which consists of possible future number 1 overall draft pick DeAndre Ayton and Dusan Ristic, who has emerged as a serious scoring threat in conference action. In my opinion, Arizona's interior dominance gives them a decided edge in this matchup because I don't think Arizona State has the size or defensive ability to contain either of those guys. If Arizona State is to win, they must perform better offensively than they did back on December 30th. Their defense is just not good enough to beat Arizona. If Trey Holder or Shannon Evans has an off night, they must put up points in a big way tonight. In terms of my prediction, I'm going to bite the bullet and say that Arizona picks up the season sweep. It's definitely going to be a hostile environment, but in my opinion, Arizona is clearly the better, more talented, and more complete team. If they can retain their composure throughout, I really like their chances in this one. Unfortunately, that is going to do it for today's show. If you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe and follow the show on Twitter at CPP Pride Report. Also, be sure to join me on Saturday morning for a special game day episode of the Pride Report. I'm going to be previewing the biggest games this weekend, discussing the case against the best teams in college basketball winning a national championship with Sean Bach, and providing a massive bracketology update, so you do not want to miss that. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. I'm out. I'll see you guys on Saturday.